me and Holy Tash are bringing back to you the return of Insanity Goes On. Insanity Goes On was a project that we started last spring, I think, question mark, I don't know. And the idea was that we were gonna do an over-the-top reading vlog once a month. And we did 2, and then I was very, very pregnant and very, very not reading, still am, and it just stayed there. And then I had a very, very young baby, still have, and we never returned, but we are determined that 2024 is gonna be our year, and so here we are, picking this back up from the ashes. Fingers crossed that we're gonna be able to do it, because I still have a very, very young baby, and I'm still very, very much not reading. Right, so on this episode, we are reading people's favorite books of 2023. The way we're going to do this is we are going to scavenger the booktube community and watch random videos until we find 2 books that we actually own and we actually are on our TBR. Easy enough. I haven't started looking yet, so that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to type on booktube best books of 2023 and start skimming through the videos. This one tomorrow, and I was hoping it would be one of the ones that shows up on videos because I really want to read it. Also, this is completely chaotic between getting ads on the videos and him crying and my husband showing up. I'm recording a video.
I
feel like it's very chaotic because I'm trying to record and it's impossible.
I'm just thanking you for the tea. I'm just thanking you for the tea.
How am I supposed to be a famous YouTuber? You live mad.
Hold on.
2 hours and 20 minutes later, 1 bottle for my baby, 1 nappy changing, and many, many cuddles, I finally managed to sit back on the sofa and keep watching YouTube videos to try and find the 2 books that I'm going to read for this vlog. But of course I had to make this more difficult for myself than what was necessary, and so I decided that instead of simply picking 2 books that I really wanted to read or picking the first 2 that showed up in the videos, I decided that I was going to watch a random number of videos. Honestly, I don't know how many videos I watched, and I would just take note of every single book that showed up on the lists of people and that I had on my TBR, and then at the end, once I decided, okay, this is my last video, then I would read the 2 most popular ones. Was this necessary? Yes. Another interesting thing that I noticed while I was scrolling through videos was that there is quite a lot of books that multiple people have on their best books of the year lists. And some of them I kept seeing popping out multiple times, so I decided to also start taking note of them, and I thought maybe it would be interesting if I read something else, something that is not on my TBR but that kept showing up on people's lists. Now, I don't know if I have enough time to read another book for this vlog because I'm a busy mom, so if I do, I will do it at the end. If not, leave me a comment if that's something that you'd like me to do, and I'll do a quick vlog just for that purpose. Some of these YouTubers, I follow them or I've watched their videos in the past, and perhaps that's why they were being suggested to me on my search results. Some others, I've never heard about them, I've never seen them, and I had no idea what their reading tastes were like. So as you can see, there were a few videos that I scrolled through the entire video and didn't pick a single selection out of them. Some of them were just fantasy based, and others seemed like what I like to call intellectual literature. I don't know if those books were classics or just older books or non-fictions. I don't know what they were, but it definitely didn't seem like the fun fiction that I enjoy reading. So again, those were videos that I didn't get a single recommendation out of them. I ended up watching a bunch of other favorite videos off camera because I was having way too much fun finding out what people had in common. I found a bunch of books that were mentioned twice, and they were a mixture of older and newer titles. Some of them are definitely well known and have popular titles, while others I had never heard of them until I started watching these videos. And out of these 17 books that were mentioned twice, 5 of them caught my interest based solely on the covers and titles. I have no idea what they're about as I read no synopsis for any of them. These were the books that were mentioned the most. It's important to mention that I'm only including here the books that I haven't read, so of course there were numerous mentions to books like Fourth Wing and Happy Place, but I've read those, so I didn't include them on this list. The Chestnut Spring series was mentioned a whopping 6 times. Some people mentioned different books in the series, but I counted them all towards the series itself instead of the individual books. I had honestly never heard anyone talking about this series until now. These are the British covers, but perhaps you've seen the American covers instead. I don't know what the series is about, but I'm definitely curious after being on so many 2023 tops. Yours truly and Yellowface were also mentioned 6 times each on the videos that I watched, and although I have no interest in reading Yellowface, I would give a try to yours truly. This is the Windy City series. I had seen these covers before in videos, but I never really paid too much attention to it and had no idea that was actually a popular series. Again, no idea what it's about, but I'm very curious, and it might or may not be because the first book has an airplane on the cover. Encyclopedia of Fairies has been going around Instagram, but it doesn't seem like the kind of book I'd enjoy, even though again I have no idea what it's about, so I'm just being a judgmental person really. Please like and subscribe for more. And finally, I was very surprised to see a thriller being mentioned as often as None of This Is True. I have the feeling that thrillers don't really make it to the people's tops of the year, as nothing is new anymore. Every plot has been explored and thriller readers are hard to impress. But then hey ho, here is this one, and now I'm actually considering picking it up to see what it's all about. So let me know if you've read any of these very popular books and if there's any I should pick up straight away. But back to the point of this video. These were the runner-ups, the books that almost made it from my TBR shelf to this video, and any of them would have been a great pick. But there were 2 books that got mentioned 4 times each, hence making it to the actual video. So after all of this, all of these covers, all of these books, here are the 2 winners for this vlog. We have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin and The 7-Year Sleep by Ashley Poston. These will be the 2 books that I will be reading for this vlog, and let's see if I agree with everyone that has been saying that these are excellent books and they deserve a spot in their list of best books of 2023. It's 3 a.m. and I was gonna go to bed, but he's probably gonna wake up within the next hour to have his bottle. It's gonna be rough on me if I go to sleep and I sleep like 20 minutes and then I have to wake up and feed him, etc. So I thought, instead of going to sleep, no sentence ever during early parenthood should start with instead of going to sleep. Instead of going to sleep, I'm going to start the book. Earlier today or yesterday, what is time, I was scrolling through my library app looking for something, but I saw that apparently months ago, past Manganet placed a hold for this audiobook, and the audiobook just came through even before I knew this was going to be the book that I was going to be reading for this vlog. So I thought to myself, oh, perhaps I should read it soon. Not making a huge priority out of it because there's always Audible, but then I did this video and the book is here and the audiobook is as well. Is this God loving me? Anyway, I'm gonna sit here, try not to fall asleep. I have him on the camera. Do you wanna have a look? Do you wanna have a look? Come have a look. Isn't that the most cute baby? Actually, I'm running out of battery on the camera, and I love when I'm running out of battery when I'm about to do one of these reading time lapses, because then I don't have to get up to turn off the recording. It just finishes. Page 41, like halfway through the page, very annoyingly, but as you can hear, he's crying, so let's go give him a bottle and then go to sleep. I've been reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow for what it feels like forever, but my very demanding baby hasn't been allowing me a lot of time to sit and read. But I've made it to page 110, which is chapter 2 question mark or 3 in part 2. My thoughts so far, I'm really enjoying it. I find that the writing style is very original, very different from anything else that I've read, and it feels very poetic. Obviously it's a prose, not a poem. The way the things are described, we would say things like, and then he asked her for a coffee. Later she would find out that that coffee meant blah 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 blah. Or it would have been 15 years later when she remembered that scene and realized that blah 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 blah. There's a lot of the word would, like would be. I find that their way of describing the future for a future, but that has already happened, like that future is already the past, and that's why we are learning about that future. It's so poetic. Am I alone in this? I don't know, I've never read anything with this writing style, but I'm really enjoying it. And if in case you don't know, we are following the story of a boy and a girl, Sam and Sadie, that meet in the hospital when Sadie's sister was going through cancer treatment, and Sam had a broken foot and he would... My baby just woke up. He was going through intensive surgery to fix his foot. I'll tell you more about it later, remind me. And now he's awake looking at me. So Sam was going through intense surgery and treatment on his foot to fix it. They met in this like little gaming room and they were playing video games together. They were just kids back then. Sadie was the first person with whom Sam had a conversation back then in that period of his life. And they became the bestest of friends, and their conversations are so funny and interesting. And then they had a falling out. They didn't speak for a few years, and now it's a few years later and we are learning about their current story. They're developing a video game together. The way the book is written, I wouldn't call it a dual timeline, but we definitely are talked through different timelines, when they first met and the current one, and there's references to the future, like I was saying, with that wood blah blah blah, but the timelines are not exactly separated from each other. I don't really know how to explain this because, like I said, for me this is very unique, very original, and I've never seen this anywhere else, so I never really thought about this kind of writing style. But you are reading through one perspective and it seamlessly floats through time to the future and the present and back to the past and then the future again. And I must say that sometimes I do need to reread the same paragraph again, just because I get to the end and I realize, oh wait, this is not now, this was 10 years ago, or this is in 20 years. Then I reread the paragraph and it all makes sense in a different way. I'm really enjoying it, and to be honest, I wish I was having more time to just sit and read. 100 pages in, I'm really enjoying it, really having fun with it, and I'll check up with you probably another 100 pages in. God, I look terrible. Hold on. Man, I look rough. Also, it's a little bit cold. I told you on my previous clip that I was going to update this video on page 200. But then it didn't happen because reading this has been so chaotic because I have no time to read, and so often I want to sit down and read, but then I have a baby that needs my attention. I've surpassed the 200 page mark where I wanted to update you. The other day I was cooking and I decided to listen to the audiobook, and I think I ended up listening to a good chunk while I was cooking. Do I think this is gonna be 5 stars? I don't know, because I'm really enamored by the way it's written. I've mentioned it, I'm not gonna repeat myself. The story, I'm also enjoying the fact that it goes through many years. So I feel like this has the things that I need for a book to be 5 stars. I feel like if this makes me cry, then it's a guaranteed 5 stars. Because that's the other thing that makes me give 5 stars to books, is the emotional damage. Because I'm taking so long to read the book, I also feel like I'm getting super connected to these characters. So if something happens to one of them, I'm just not mentally prepared. And that was my update for 200 pages. Did you learn anything from this update? It's 11 p.m. He's asleep in his bed upstairs. So I think I'm gonna sit here for a bit and read some more. And I'll try and update you at page 300. But, you know, it might not be possible due to the circumstances, but I'll do my best. Oh, I'm tired. I made it to page 300. What? These last few chapters have been very interesting. We are now entering the romance section of the book, I think. I mean, sometimes it's hard to predict because the story, I wouldn't call them plot twists, but the narrative changes a lot depending on what's happening. I've seen some people commenting on how they think this book is interesting but a bit boring, and I can see why people would say that, because it's literally just the story of these 3 people's lives. It's just what's happening during those days as they're developing video games, and some of them are huge successes and some of them are complete failures, and that affects the relationship that they have with each other, but also with other people that come to their lives and their families and everything. And I find it very intriguing, very interesting. This is the kind of story that I really dig, but I can definitely see why some people would think this is boring and maybe even perhaps a little bit repetitive, but for me, I'm loving it. So picture the following scenario. There I was on the stovetop, mixing my minced beef for my shepherd's pie, mixing, cooking, had my headphones in, was listening to the audiobook of this, and BAM! The drama happens. and I didn't cry because I was cooking. But if I was just reading it and not mixing the minced beef, I would have definitely cried. Emotional. This book, my dudes, I see why this was on everyone's top list of 2023. Definitely deserves the spot. I don't know yet if this is gonna be a high 4 or a 5-star book. Stay put for that. But I understand, I agree. I give it the award. I would have put it on my top books of the year as well. Also, naturally, like one does, today I left the house and, well, that's not what naturally one does. What naturally one does is that I left the house, therefore I bought books. Flawless by Elsie Silver, which, if you remember from the beginning of this video, was one of them that I never heard of, but that was in a lot of tops as well. And now that I have it, potentially I could use this to read as a third book if I have time. The other book that I got, never heard of it, but these books were on this deal of 3 for £6, that the work always has these deals. And back in my day, it used to be 3 for £5 when I first moved to the UK, just saying. And then I got Your Place or Mine by Portia McIntosh. And I feel like I've heard about this in the past. It's a very short book. And the third one I got, again, never heard about it. It's 10 Dates. It's by Rachel Dove. Oh, by the way, this is all I have left. Look at me going. I'm not prepared, but I am prepared. But at the same time, I don't want to say goodbye to these characters because that's the thing. I've been reading this for so long that I feel like we're one, me and these characters. I usually put the camera on top of my drink cup, and I've clearly not been hydrating enough today because the drink cup isn't here. The emotion is taking over me. Guys, I finished the book, guys. This is excellent. 5 stars. 5 stars. It's so good. It's honestly one of my favorite books ever. I've had such a good time reading it. It's so well written. Also, the other day I realized that one of the other books that showed up on my graphs of books that people put on the top, The Storied Life of Someone, I don't remember the name anymore, it's also from this author. This is so beautiful. Like, I don't know who to recommend this to, because I mean, it's a bit slow, but it's not. It's so many years. It's so good. So good. Did I tear up? A little bit. I was reading in the front room while Josh was watching some TV, because it's right here at the end. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. No, I'm gonna spoil it. I'll put my spoilers card here. If you've read this, you know that Mark's die. I read that yesterday. I was shocked. Like, oh my god, so sad. But surprisingly, that didn't make me cry. But like I said, I was stirring the minced beef yesterday when I listened to that section, so perhaps it would have if I was reading it. But today, right at the end, when Sam's granddad dies, and we're reading about it and about that last conversation that he had with Sam and how he was saying that Mark and Sadie both loved you, and he was comparing his death to the video game death. My eyes were feeling the emotions. Honestly, this was brilliant. I loved it. I'm so excited. This was my first read of the year, and we're starting off with a bang. God damn it, I'm so happy. Do you know when this ever happens to me? Literally never. Never. I'm never this lucky with books. I'm here tearing up a little bit with emotion. I have no words to describe it. It's so good. It's so good. Chef's kiss. I'm so happy. And now we're gonna move on to the next book, which I have conveniently right here, like the professional YouTuber that I am. I'm recording this with my phone because I have a sleeping baby on me. I need to update you because I've been reading The 7 Years Sleep. I'm on page 200. I was supposed to update you every 100 pages, and this book only has 300 and so pages. So you would only receive 3 updates for this book and then one at the end. I haven't because I've been mostly listening to it on audio while I cook dinner. I reckon if I don't update you now, I never will until the end of the book. And then this vlog would get really weird because there's a nice intro, a bit about the other book, and then nothing about this one. Anyway, so what do I have to say about this book? I'm really enjoying it. It's a romance story about this 28 year old girl that is now living on her former aunt's apartment. Well, not the aunt's former apartment. It was hers and now it's hers. Honestly, you'd think that after all these years of talking about books, I would be somehow better at it, but I'm not. So she's living on her aunt's apartment all by herself. She moved there with her stuff and whatever. And then one day she opens the door and there's someone else in the apartment and all her aunt's stuff is back in. And then she realizes that when the apartment is like that, it means it's 7 years before in time, and there's this guy there that back then, 7 years ago, was renting the apartment for the summer from her aunt, while the aunt and herself were on vacation in Oslo, Norway. That's why the apartment was free. And when she was a kid, she remembers that her aunt also told her that the same had happened to her. So one of the aunt's rules was never fall in love in the apartment because it never lasts. So we are following that, and obviously it keeps changing between the two timelines, but not necessarily two timelines. It basically depends when she opens the apartment door. It depends what it's going to be. And I haven't heard too many reviews of this book because I knew that eventually I would want to read it. Obviously, it was on my TBR shelf. So because of that, I never looked too much into it. But I've heard a couple of people saying that even though they love it, the timeline doesn't really make any sense, how she never went to look for him or anything. And that's as far as I went into listening to what other people had to say about it before I read it. And I was a bit nervous that the story would not make sense, like this dichotomy of the timelines would be messy and written in a confusing way, or that it would be one of those stories where you're reading and you have so many questions to yourself, like, but why is this not happening? Or how come this is possible and this other thing is not possible? But it's not the case at all. I haven't found any plot holes. And granted that when I read a book, I'm not exactly looking for them or thinking too hard about the story or about how it's constructed. But on a very superficial level, which is the level in which I always read everything makes perfect sense. And I'm really enjoying it. It's a nice romance. It has a little bit of giddy feelings to it. The story also has a narrative besides the romance, which I always find it interesting because I find if we are too focused on the two main characters, sometimes, not always, depends what the author does. Sometimes it becomes very flat because of that, but I don't think that's the case with this one, especially because we do have, I wouldn't say a whole other story about it, but the main character, the girl, she does have a life besides being perhaps falling in love with this stranger in the apartment. Yesterday, I finished reading The 7 Year Slip. I'm giving it a solid 4 stars. I literally did one update for this book, but there was not much to say. I enjoyed it. It was a fun romance. Time traveling is something that it's like my brain doesn't really process it properly. So in movies and everything, if it goes into too much detail on how that time travel works and how, like, if you do something now, it affects everything in the past and then it changes everything and then there's all these dual realities and everything. If it goes into too much detail, it literally ties a knot on my brain and I'm unable to comprehend. This one was very flat, like the way it works. There was her, the present, and the guy was 7 years ago. And basically, the guy couldn't go look for her because in his time, it was 7 years before, so she wouldn't know who he was. Now, he could have gone look for her and they could have just fallen in love 7 years ago. But at some point in the book, she does bring an important reason for that, which is if they had met 7 years before, so when she was 22, she wouldn't have been ready for him. She was in a different phase of her life. She wasn't the person she's currently. And I think all of that makes a lot of sense. You are different people through your life, and that depends on the experiences that you have lived. And 7 years before, she wouldn't have lived certain experiences that made her the person she was currently. But the same applies to him. So in those 7 years that he waited for her, he lived a lot of things. And surely he's not exactly the same person that he was 7 years before. And we do see that there's a few things that changed in the way that he was dreaming and in the way his dreams evolved and adapted. And that is, in my opinion, very well portrayed on the book because the main character talks about that. She says how she was basically disappointed in him on the current timeline because he was not the person that she met. But that makes sense because meanwhile he's been to 7 years of different experiences that have molded his personality. So obviously you don't become a completely different person, but what makes you changes a little bit. And that's mentioned in the book, and I think that it's done very cleverly, and all the questions that I could have to myself of this doesn't make sense or why is this like this, which is not a lot, but a couple of things, and they've been mentioned here. So I didn't finish the book with the feeling that something didn't get explained or that I had more questions than answers, and I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it to anyone that enjoys romance, or even if you're not a romance reader and would like to try a little bit of romance, this is a good start. I think that my hair looks how I feel, which is frazzled. Now I was gonna go to bed and then I thought, no, I'm not. I'm gonna give you the final update for this vlog. I did read Flawless. Until I started this video, I had never heard of this book because otherwise it might have been on my shelves and then maybe I would have read this as one of my 2 main books for this vlog, and then this vlog would have not been nearly as successful as it was because I did love my 2 books. But this one, I do not understand how people say this is one of the best books of 2023, because it literally felt like I was logging onto a porn website and just reading like a short story from there. It's so dirty. It started alright. It was never great. The main character is a cowboy, which is not at all my thing. Very American, like strong American guy, like cowboys, bold.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, whatever, maybe I can still get on board with their romance. I couldn't, and then it just gets getting worse and worse, and when it gets to like the peak of the events and they start having relations with each other, is it dirty? I think this was one of the dirtiest books I've read, and obviously I don't read a lot of smut, so I'm not very experienced in this kind of novels, but it's so dirty. I was honestly reading it and cringing so much. The way it's written, like the language they were using, the way they were talking to each other during the scene, it was so dirty, like proper like swearing. And there's this thing I'm gonna have to share. So he's a cowboy, and at some point she's flirting with another guy, and obviously to make him jealous, and obviously she's successful in that attempt. She then removes the cowboy hat from the other guy and puts it on her head, and the main character, he absolutely loses it. So he goes to them and he tells the other guy, did you explain to her the cowboy hat rule? And she's like, what rule? And the other guy is like, leave me alone, go mind your own business. And the main character is like, no, explain to her the rule, you need to tell her the rule. And she's like, what rule? Later on he tells her that the rule is, if a girl wears the cowboy hat, then she must ride the cowboy. I feel like people who would put this on their tops would be women who are much younger than I am. I'm not saying that everyone loves this book, I'm saying that people love the series. And the other day after I finished reading this, I had a quick look on Goodreads just because I wanted to see if the second book is also about the same couple, and it's not. But I think, if I remember the names correctly, I think it was about his brother and his love interest would be the babysitter who's 13 years younger than him or something. So multiple questions have arisen from there. The first one, and the most important, most prominent one in my mind, is, does the whole family have very intense sex lives? People just love the series in general, not necessarily this book. And by consulting Goodreads, I also reached the conclusion that the second book is actually the one that has the highest rating from them all. And this has thousands of ratings. Like, all the ratings are super high out of thousands of ratings, which scares me and worries me. Why do people love it? Am I curious to read the second book? I'm having a little bit of FOMO, I'm not gonna lie, because everyone loves it and I don't get it. I don't want to feel excluded. I want to understand why people love it. So I kind of want to read the second book. Yeah, I don't know if I will, but I might. But with this, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to go check out Natasha's videos and let's find out which books she read from her TBR that were on the top 23s, because I have no idea at this point of recording this, and come back next month for another over-the-top reading vlog, which apparently now we've been in discussions, they might not be reading vlogs all the time, so let's just call them over-the-top videos and not necessarily reading. If you have any ideas of things you'd like to see us doing, then please let me know in the comments and let her know, and we will see what we can do, because we're here to please. That's our goal. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you very soon here on the channel for another video. Bye!